Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. I am a divorce lawyer who is passionate about helping all of us to use the adversity in our life to grow and show up as the best version of ourselves. Aaron Bender, my producer, is here. Are you considering a career change?
No. I've been there, done that. Thank you very much. We have the career flipper on the show today, Jenny Dempsey. I have a question for you, though. Have you considered changing careers? Oh, lawyer extraordinaire for 20 years.
Every day. For real.
How close have you been at some point of saying, you know what, I've done it. I've done it. And now let's go do something else?
I mean, there was a time about 10 years ago where I was very sort of disillusioned about being a lawyer. I was very unhappy with being a lawyer. And I, had a couple ideas of what I wanted to transition to. And Jeff just told me, I don't care what you do, just make the same amount of money. And I was like, well, that takes care of that because I wanted to open a cupcake shop. And I don't know that I could charge $900 an hour in a cupcake shop. So, so I didn't do it. We have Jenny Dempsey on the show today, host of the Career Flipper podcast and a furniture flipper herself. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Hello, Holly. Thank you so much. This is so cool to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here. So a while ago, I got a text from my dear friend Leah, and she was like, oh my gosh, my friend Jenny is going to be on your show. How did that happen? Did you talk to her? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. We have a booker that books every all of the guests on the show. So it was just mere happenstance that we have this mutual connection.
Yeah, which is so funny because I also texted Leah and was like, oh my gosh, I got this message from Holly's assistant and we're going to do this. And she's like, wait, what? How did that happen? I was like, I don't know. Did you tell her? She's like, no, I didn't say anything.
Oh my gosh.
So funny. Small world. I love it.
World. Yes, what a small world. Okay, so jumping into the meat and potatoes. Now we know that it's a small world. So Jenny, tell me how you originally got interested in career flipping.
Well, it didn't ever show up on my career path as something I ever thought I was going to do. I had been working in customer experience at startup tech companies for almost 20 years. Honestly, that's where I met Leah back in the day. And, when you work in the same field over many, many years, you just don't, well, at least I didn't think twice about doing anything different. I thought, well, I found it. This is what I'm going to do. And then I got laid off. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized how much my identity was wrapped up in this career path. And just what I didn't know is what to do next because I couldn't find a job, which felt very strange because I was like, I've been doing this for so long. Yeah. Why can't I get a job? But with the way that the tech market is right now, I'm sure a lot of people listening maybe have also experienced layoffs, but it was really challenging where one job would suddenly have 1,000 applicants and really good people were losing their jobs. And so it was challenging and I had to figure something out and I just kind of got creative, but it took getting to a very low point to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, well, I think that often is the case, where it takes a lot of pain and suffering to really kind of do the self-reflection and experience the growth. At least that's kind of what I've experienced in my own life. So before you got laid off, or do you think if you wouldn't have gotten laid off, do you think you would still be there?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have questioned it at all. I would still be there, probably doing the same things. Yeah,
interesting.
Absolutely.
So looking back, do you wish that was the case, or are you thankful for the path?
I am so thankful for getting laid off. It was it sounds so cliche, but it was a slap in the face that I didn't know I needed. I only saw people doing the same career for many years. It was what I saw in my family. It was what I kind of was taught in society. Like you do the same job and you don't really question it because otherwise it's too risky or, you know, but I
Right.
was a very creative person, and I put a lot of those creative things on the side because work came first. That's just, again, what I was taught. And yeah, when I got laid off, I really had to reevaluate what mattered, especially when I had no job. I had over 400 job rejections. I had no money
Wow.
coming in, and I had
Yeah.
to figure something out. And it just got scary and weird because
Yeah.
you start to think of things that you wouldn't normally otherwise think of, and you feel really alone with those thoughts.
Yeah. So I know that you are like, I mentioned in your bio, you're a furniture flipper. So okay, one, you'll have to explain what a furniture flipper is, but
Yeah.
two, is that when you started flipping furniture?
A prenuptial agreement, or sometimes called a premarital agreement, is an agreement that two parties enter into before they get married that basically chooses to deviate from state law. It assigns rights and responsibilities regarding assets and debts that are acquired during the marriage. Some common misconceptions about prenups are, one, that they basically doom the marriage to failure, or that it's really planning to divorce, and neither of those things are true. But the real value of a prenup is talking about and creating rules around how the things that you acquire during the marriage are going to be characterized. A prenup can protect things like art collections, real estate portfolios, businesses, all those types of assets. The ideal timeline to get a prenup is not 2 weeks before the wedding. The final version of a prenup has to be presented to the parties 7 days before they actually sign it. So there's like a 7-day waiting period. As soon as you get engaged, you should seek a lawyer's advice and counsel on a prenup and start the process then, because the closer the prenup is signed to the wedding, the more likely that the court is going to think there was some sort of duress involved in that person signing it, and they have to prove that the prenup was signed voluntarily in order for them to be enforced. At Moore Family Law Group, we represent a lot of high-profile people, celebrities, professional athletes, business tycoons. If you already have a lot of assets, or you think you're going to be acquiring a lot of assets during your marriage, we are the best ones to protect that for you and help you make your marriage stronger. Call Moore Family Law Group today.
There was this moment I remember getting, maybe at that point it was my 200th job rejection or something. And so it was kind of in the middle of all of this. And I was just really depressed. And I didn't know what to do. And I was in my friend Jordan's house, and she had a basement. She had this junky old table sitting in her basement. I mean, she had found it in the alley like years before. It was covered in paint and grime, and it was gross. But for whatever reason, I looked at that table and I saw myself. I just felt completely unwanted and junky, and like I can't find a job in an industry I just poured my soul into for so many years. It was a really low moment, a really low place. But she's like, I don't know, you want to take this table with you? You want to take it home and figure out something to do with it? And I had never worked with power tools. I didn't know, the difference between different grits of sandpaper or different types of stain. I didn't know any of these things. So I had zero clue, but for whatever reason, I said yes. And so I
Okay.
took it home with me, and I started to watch all of these YouTube videos and Instagram videos of people restoring furniture. I cornered employees at Lowe's and was like, hey, what do I do for this? Or what would I use for this? And I just kind of figured it out. I got scrappy, and I got very curious, and I just started using the tools that I had and transformed that table completely. And what happened after that is I posted it on my personal Instagram just for fun, like, look what I did. And then suddenly I have messages from friends who are like, oh, I got a junky piece of furniture, you can have that. And then I'd be walking my dog down the street, and suddenly on the corner, there's some other piece of furniture just sitting there, someone's throwing away. And I was like, it just started showing up everywhere. Friends are bringing me things. People are asking me, hey, can you fix this for me? I have this and I want it in my house. And it just became something that I never saw. And with each piece of junky furniture that I was restoring, I was also healing a part of myself as I worked through removing this identity from work and who I was pre-layoff, getting more and more rejections. And honestly, the timing just feels very strange, because every time I'd get a rejection, I'd be finding a new piece of junk furniture. So it was almost like this strange message from the universe for me to kind of figure something out and get resourceful, a little scrappy, messy. And then I just started documenting it. And that's how San Diego Furniture Flipper was born.
I love that. You know, I actually haven't thought about this for a while, but you talking has reminded me. I've always been like a big DIYer and like, you know, crafty, and I'm always like doing stuff around my house. Yeah. And one of my absolute favorite things to do is to sand down a piece of furniture. Yeah. Because I just think there's I think there's such beauty in taking like this ugly thing, it's beat up, it probably has marks on it, it's got crap on it, and like the color it is probably like dated, and you sand it and it like reveals this beautiful, natural, like pristine piece. And like I've always loved that. And so that's like what came to my mind when you're talking about doing that.
Yep. Oh, and I agree. It is one of the most like transformative processes because you see the change. You actually experience it. You're part of it. And you're revealing so many things that have been hidden for years and years and years. And it's just a reminder, like, that second chances are possible. It just sometimes takes a little bit of extra work and grit and sweat and tears.
Lot of grit.
Yes. Yes.
That's so true. I love that. It's so like metaphorical, you know, like right. I love that. Right. Okay, so now is this what you do to earn an income? Is you flip furniture for an income?
So I do this on the side now, and it just kind of ended up staying as a part-time thing simply because I'll be very, very transparent. Like, it's hard work. Yeah. And no matter how fit you are, like I'm very active, very fit, but the type of labor that it involves is just a lot. I tried to do it full time for a while and I realized I got to listen to my body on this one. This is a part-time, more boutique thing. And so I do it part-time, client projects, individual sales, custom things. But my ultimate goal is to save the furniture from the landfill and give it a second chance at life. But yeah, so I do that and host the podcast. And then just this past January, it took me a couple years, I did end up taking on a full-time job, which I like to refer to as the investor in my dreams, to be able to do the other things without too much financial strain. So I can build those up and then one day, you know, won't need the full-time corporate job. So that's the goal.
Cool. So I know in addition to flipping furniture, you also started the Career Flipper podcast.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So while I was doing all this furniture restoration in my garage and building my website, I was posting about it on LinkedIn. And I started to realize that the network that I knew for almost 2 decades thought it was a little weird. And suddenly, you know, I'd worked in tech and now I am in the garage covered in paint and sawdust. And that is a little weird. I felt weird. And so I made this post one day, a couple years ago, and I was like, has anyone else changed their career to, you know, something that's completely different from where they started? And a couple people replied, and I remember hopping on a Zoom call with them and just chatting, and I was like, gosh, like I didn't know where my career path was going to lead at that point. But I knew that talking to people about what they've been through when they were faced with challenges or making a change and how they felt alone doing something a little off the beaten path just made me feel validated and made me feel like a little more confident. And so I kept trying to find more people who have done this. And I just like, their stories were so powerful to me. And I really just kept referring back to them every day. When I get a rejection, I was like, okay, no, it's a redirection, you know, all these things, like what I was learning. And then one night, and again, this was a crazy time, so this sounds a little cheesy, but like I had this weird dream one night where I was sitting in a studio and like my podcast, there was a name, The Career Flipper, in neon lights on the wall, and I was sitting there at a microphone talking into it. And in my mind, in that dream, I was running a podcast, and I woke up and I was like, what? That is so weird. Why was that dream so vivid? I don't usually have dreams like this. It was very bizarre, but I pushed it away. But then like these nudges kept showing up. Like I kept thinking of it. It kept popping in my head at random times. You should record this. You should record this. And I was like, I don't know how to do a podcast. I have no idea. Like these weird nudges, kind of like with the furniture just showing up everywhere. The universe kept sending me weird signs, and I was like, this is wacky. I don't even know if I believe in this. And like, and then I decided, I talked to one of my friends who, he worked in SEO, and now he also does animal psychic communication. And so I was like, that's a little out there, you know?
Okay.
Maybe I'll talk to him and see if he would be the first guest on this little random show that I'm going to start. I'll do 8 episodes because I had been talking with 8 different people. I honestly thought that was it. I learned how to do the editing, recording, and all the, distribution stuff.
Yeah.
Got it out there, and then suddenly those 8 people who I talked to told 8 other people, and suddenly I had 16, and then more people reaching out, and suddenly I had more episodes that I knew what to do with. I had which I like to call every single guest on the Career Flipper a personal mentor, because the things that they say, then I started to get feedback from people I didn't even know, telling me that this is influencing them to make a change, or this is inspiring them to keep going with their the wacky belief that they aren't sure they can do. And it was just, it piled into something that I never saw coming, and now I cannot let it go. And it is such a cool experience to where, it hasn't even been a year. July will be a year. And I'll have almost 100 episodes and of people from around the world who have made all different kinds of career flips, slips, glides, all the things.
Yeah. I love that. So, okay, so you've gone through it yourself, and you've also talked to a lot of people who have kind of experienced this. What do you think, what's your biggest takeaway from having to start over? What things have you learned from having to start over?
I think the biggest thing that I have learned is that you can. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but I didn't know when I was sitting there crying at my desk because I kept getting rejections for jobs that were way lower than what I had even been doing before. I just didn't know if would I work again? I didn't know I could do anything else. I just didn't really believe in myself until I took the time to really kind of dig a little deeper. And that's really what kept me going, is knowing that I can start over, giving myself permission to be curious, giving myself permission to ask people questions, slide in their DMs and say, hey, how did you do this? And to try things, to get pieces. I was literally taking furniture from the outside of a trash can, and making it look pretty, and then selling it for a few $100. I was doing something that I never saw coming, but it would not have ever happened if I didn't believe that I could start something again.
Yeah. So why do you think, because it wasn't your choice, obviously, to get laid off. And you said you probably would still be there. You would have never made a change. But I think there are a lot of people that feel like they should make a change. They're feeling unhappy or, discontent in some way, but they don't make a change because they're scared. So why do you think so many of us are scared to start over and make those changes?
Well, I think because we put so much pressure on ourselves for it to be this perfect, polished thing. And also, financial stability is really important. It can cost money to take these big risks, so to say. And if it doesn't look a certain way, then people might judge us for not being successful right away. Redefining what success means might not look like what society or our family or friends think that it means. And so when we go out there and try something new and we make mistakes and we look a little clumsy, we can get judged. And that's really scary. And also, we can lose money. We could struggle. And that's also really scary. And so I think when we think about making these changes, we don't have to take the biggest leap. We don't have to jump into the deep end right away. There can be small, tiny, tiny steps that we can take towards this direction. And if you have the choice to do it, if you know ultimately that you want to make a change and you don't think you can because you can't jump right away, what's the very first tiniest step you can take? And make it. Once you make that first step, all you can keep doing is taking more steps. Right. And I think just starting small and acting on it is kind of the biggest thing you can do. If you're just not feeling like wanting to make the jump right away. So
okay, I like that. what, looking back, do you feel like there probably were signs that it was time for you to pivot in your life or anything like that?
Ooh, this is such a good question. I have done so much reflection on this. Yes. When I look
Okay.
back now, there was a time, gosh, I'm trying to remember what year, but I was managing a 24-person contact center team. I was working 60-hour weeks. I was just so burnt out. And I had an anxiety attack in front of my team at the office. This was pre-COVID. I was working in an office, and I remember like it was terrible. I had to report it to HR. I had to go to the doctor. Like I had all these things. Like it was a big ordeal. And then I remember having like they made me take a 2-week vacation. You know, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't think that it was related to anything I could be doing because work was so busy. I just like work's busy. I have to work.
Right.
But when I reevaluate and I look back on that, I'm like, ooh, that was a big sign that there was possibly something there that I needed to change. But on the positive side, there were other things going on. Like I love to sing and play guitar. I also really love to, I'm crafty. While I never did furniture restoration, I love to kind of like paint, ceramics or do random little things. But I always just put it on the back burner, even with music. And so I feel like there were times when I look back and I remember feeling so sad because I'm like, well, I'm not going to play guitar tonight because I got to work for another few hours. And just that feeling in my gut of like that sadness that I let pile up and up and up and build some resentment, I think that just ate away at a lot of who I was. And looking back at that, I'm like, man, I could have just played music. Like I could have just done that for a little bit longer. It didn't have to be a job. It could have just been like another 15 minutes instead of just letting something rule my life that didn't have to.
Right. Interesting. So with all the people that you've talked to on the podcast, is their story similar to yours where like they kind of had signs that it was time for them to pivot in life and maybe life just made them do it or maybe they made the choice, but there was signs?
A lot of the guests on the show did have signs, yes.
Okay.
Whether they were nudges that they didn't listen to for years, whether it was a dream that they had that they finally, took a calculated risk for because they had been saving. The stories it's very different, whether it's by choice or circumstance. And so a lot of people, though, there is a common theme of this internal nudge. And they don't really know what it is, but it gets louder and louder and louder. And sometimes it shows up in ways where it could be like anxiety, it could be depression, it could be other types of like bad habits where it shows because you're ignoring it. And it could show up in other ways where it's positive, where you're like, now this is all I want to do. Now I can't not do it. I have to listen to it. But there is always this little whisper of a little knock that just you can't ignore. It keeps showing up. It's weird.
Yes. If you try to ignore it, it shows up again.
Yes.
In a different, more strong way.
Yes. What you resist persists. So that whole saying, like, it's so
that's
funny.
very
Yeah.
true. Yes. So what is your favorite story from your podcast?
Oh my gosh. Oh, there are so many. I think the one that stands out the most is a colleague of mine that I actually used to work with years ago. Her name is Natalie Shuman, and she was on the marketing team at the company that I worked at before I got laid off. And so she had left about, I don't know, maybe a couple months into when I started there. And I was there for a few years. And so I remember the day that she put in her notice because she's like, I'm quitting, I'm leaving corporate, and I am going to run a dive shop in Honduras. And she just up and left. And just now, and I follow her and I interviewed her, obviously a couple years later after so much change. But hearing how she made that change to leave corporate life to go do something on a tiny little island in the water, very different, was just the calculated risks that she took to get there, the way that it showed up as something that she always wanted to do, but wasn't sure it was going to ever be possible. But she got curious and she built a little, foundation for it. And then she did it and just up and left. And I just always found it so realistic because anyone can do something if they want to. There's some planning that goes into it, but there's also the leap. And I think, I don't know, I always just lean back on her story because she did it.
Yeah. Wow. So if someone is watching or listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is my little nudge, like I need to make a change. Maybe they have a passion that they want to turn into a profession, or they just know that they need sort of like a drastic change. What is your advice to them?
My advice is to just start small. Just start doing something, whatever it is towards it, whether it's taking a class and learning more about it, reading a book, asking someone who's already doing it about their journey and how their day-to-day looks, whether it's, I don't know, making an art piece and opening an Etsy store, whatever the smallest, tiniest thing that you can do towards that, do it. And know that it doesn't have to be perfect and polished. It doesn't have to be profitable right away. If you don't have to, get resourceful and figure something out immediately, start something on the side, but just don't let the excuses rule your mind.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with people who really believe in you, but also believe in yourself. And especially on the days that you kind of, well, at least I would, forget how to believe in yourself, keep believing in yourself. Make a ton of mistakes, but just take that first tiny step. It's just, that's the only way. You just have to take that step.
Yeah, you got to take the leap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for being on the show. And good luck in all your future flippings.
Thank you. I'm so flippin' happy to be here.
Oh,
you,
man,
Molly.
we
This
could have
was
been making flipping jokes the whole time. Dang it.
Could have. All right, we'll have to do this again.
I've got just a little bit more to say. Are you feeling that nudge right now where you need to make a change in your life? If you are, don't ignore it because it will keep showing back up. And if you are feeling that nudge, take Jenny's advice and just do the smallest, tiniest step towards that new thing that you need to do. Because I love what she said. Anyone can do something that they want to do. And so if you're feeling that, take the next step because you were made for more.